Welcome to the Cool Tools Show. I'm Mark Frauenfelder, Editor-in-Chief of Cool Tools, a website of tool recommendations written by our readers. You can find us at cool-tools.org. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Kelly, founder of Cool Tools. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here.
In each episode of the Cool Tools Show, Kevin and I talk to a guest about some of his or her favorite uncommon and uncommonly good tools they think others should know about.
Before we introduce this week's guest, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. Patreon is a great way to support everything Cool Tools does, including our newsletters, podcast, video channel, and our flagship review website. This week, we want to give a shout out to John Enverfeth and Michael. To become a patron of Cool Tools, visit patreon.com/cooltools. Our guest this week is Charles Platt. Charles used to write science fiction. He was a senior editor for Wired magazine and is the author of several excellent books about electronics. One of them is an Amazon bestseller in its field. I love the book. I've known Charles. Kevin and I have both known Charles for a long time. He's a great friend and a very interesting person. And it's the second time he's been on the show. So, Charles, welcome back to the Cool Tools podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, it's so good to hear you, Charles. I'm always delighted in what you have discovered, what you have for us. You never fail to surprise me. So I'm looking forward to a couple of your favorite 4 tools.
Okay.
I know you gave us a challenge by giving us more than 4 because you don't like to follow rules. And so, tell me about region-free DVDs. And first, are people still watching DVDs? I mean, I'm wondering if this is a little retro.
It is retro, but some of us are retro, and especially if we want to watch, for instance, Hong Kong martial arts movies from the 1990s, you really have very little choice. You're going to watch a DVD. And also, of course, you can get region-free Bluray players if that's not too retro for you.
That sounds cool.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was really big into DVDs and Blu-rays, but I have to say I've stop my, anyway, if I can't stream it, I don't watch it. That's sort of like the ultimate American laziness, is like, if it's not instant, it doesn't exist. I'm a bad boy in that way. But where do you even find these Blu-rays of Hong Kong martial arts? Are there sources? Is it all eBay? Do you just rip them from Tor, or where do you even get them?
Oh, no ripping here. We observe copyright here, Kevin.
Oh, okay.
It's in our interest.
The honest pirate. Okay, right. So, where do you find them?
Amazon and eBay. There are small distributors that have not yet been squeezed into oblivion by people such as yourself, who can't bear to wait for the DVD to show up in the mail, which gives you that moment of excitement. You know, what did I order that night when I had used some help with them, and everything seemed so wonderful. And here it is. Oh, this is great. Someone sent me a present.
So do you have a particular DVD or Blu-ray player to suggest as one to go to if you were interested in watching these hard to find, little known?
Well, the important thing to understand is that the player is not made this way by the manufacturer. A lot of people imagine that companies in Japan somehow violate their terms of contract and sell region-free players, but of course they don't. What they do is they sell them to some little basement place in Illinois run by some rather nice immigrant people who have found a niche industry. Well, industry is too kind a word, where they basically hack the DVD player by refreshing some memory inside it, and at that point it completely disables the region-free setting, the region setting, so that you can just play anything. And so far as I've been able to discover, these things actually do work. I have a couple, and so far so good. But if it doesn't work, I'm not sure what your recourse would be, because it's certainly out of warranty at this point.
Right. I remember for a while there was my understanding was that all the DVD players, Blu-ray as well, were made basically region free, and then they were encoded to prevent that, and that most of them had a code that you could just type into the setup that would, reset it back to its sort of natural read anything state.
Yeah, you supposedly can do it on your remote with some complicated code,
and of course that worked. That worked, and the idea was you wanted to buy the cheapest ones because the cheapest ones were the ones that were used all around the world, and so the cheap ones were the ones that were the easiest to default back to region free.
My experience is that the codes don't work anymore. And are a thing of the past, like DVDs themselves, and you really have to buy a region-free player. All of my efforts to uncode the older players that I have failed.
Okay. All right.
I remember when we went to the South Pacific. This was like in 2003, and this was when laptops had a DVD player. We would rent DVDs from this little DVD store on the island. And sometimes they were, like Australian coded, and sometimes they were European. And so there was like a setting on the Mac where you could change the region, but you could only change it 5 times. And then after that, you were stuck for life with whatever region.
That's right.
There was like some kind of firmware deal.
Yeah.
That was it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Who cares what region you're in?
I'm talking to 2 people here who make their living through copyright law. I don't understand this rebellion.
Yeah, no, I believe in giving things away for free. So is there a particular player? Is it just generic, or does it have a brand name, or the one that it works? You've had some experience, so does this have a model or model number, a brand? Let's see. Oh, it's a Panasonic. But the link you sent is a Panasonic DVD, multi-region free. So that's
the
reputable.
Yeah.
Okay. $64 for one with 1080 HDMI. So that would seem to work. And that's not Blu-ray, right? That's just a DVD. Okay.
Right.
So Charles, how about what's another one? Since we're in the TV realm, let's talk about an antenna. Since we're talking about watching things for free, what would you suggest there?
I did a bit of research on this because I'm in line of sight of a mountain, which is approximately 18 miles away. And that's where all the antennas are, the broadcasting antennas. And I really hate dealing with Dish Network and people like them who always have some complicated deal wanting to sell me sports channels, which I don't watch. So the idea of just using a plain antenna is very attractive if it will pick up the signal. And the one that I found actually does pretty well. I get about 18 channels off this mountain. Of course, they're not the channels that I really want, but I don't want to be tempted to watch TV. So if I put on the TV,
you want bad TV? Okay.
I want bad TV. Well, no, actually, I like bad TV. I love the Jerry Springer Show, but I'm not that kind of. Sometimes bad.
Can you get the Jerry Springer Show with this antenna?
No, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, no. Otherwise, I would just waste all my time watching. So basically, I want TV which I really don't want to watch.
Maybe you have to pay extra for
I
that.
love it. Yeah.
So just to be clear, what it is this is an antenna that you would put on the outside of your house, I presume, that's going to capture broadcast TV, the channels that are offered in your area, and its size is about, I don't know, I'm guessing 18 inches or something, or bigger. I can't
Basically
tell.
a loop antenna, which has been squashed a bit, so it becomes an oval. And I think it's about 2 feet from end to end and about 6
Okay.
inches wide. But I have it. I have a house which is fabricated from 2x6s, so it doesn't block much in the way of radio waves. So I have it just hanging on the wall. It works fine.
Okay. And so this is getting what's left of free TV. And if you don't want to have you come over either on cable or on your internets.
Well, we don't have cable where I live, so the options are limited. Anyway, the one we're talking about is the outdoor TV antenna. It says it's 150-mile range, but of course that is absurd. But it's $50 from Amazon.
Would it work for radio as well?
I don't know. I suppose you could try plugging it into the radio socket on your stereo if you still have a stereo, but it would be the wrong size for the frequencies.
Okay.
So this doesn't do the HD high definition free to air.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, broadcasters were compelled to continue broadcasting a certain amount of HD material when the big deal was made for the new as of 1990 something color standards, which I wrote about Wired. I think that was the first piece I ever wrote for Kevin.
Interesting.
So we don't have TV. Haven't had TV, and we haven't ever had TV. What do you? It may sound kind of strange, but what do you actually watch on it? We were just talking about what you wanted to watch but can't get, and what you don't want to watch. But what are you actually watching?
Well, very little. But what started all this was that someone was defending PBS. And I know we don't want to get into politics, but this is journalism. And they said, they're so neutral. I said, I can prove to you that there are certain ways in which words are put together which are manipulative, whether or not the person speaking the words or writing the words is aware of it. It could be unconsciously done that way. So then, of course, I was challenged, so I had to get this antenna so I could record a PBS show and go through it sentence by sentence. And of course, I never heard another word from that person because obviously it's a very irritating thing for me to do. So
I love the lengths you went to do the research yourself. That's like you are willing to conduct experiments. Like the time you worked at Walmart.
Well, that was a very peculiar experience because it was so difficult to get the job at Walmart. There were 160 applicants for, I think, 5 jobs. So it was a real challenge, and I had to game their system where you answer, I think, 90 questions, and they're very sneaky, difficult questions. Like,
are they trying to get you to answer them correctly, or are they picking people that don't answer them correctly?
No, Kevin. They want people who give what they consider the correct answers. But would you consider that the right answer?
Interesting.
Would you agree that at some time in their lives, every person has stolen some small thing from an employer on a scale of 1 to 9?
And 1 is meaning you don't think?
Totally disagree. It never happens. A 9 being, of course, it happens all the time. Well, you don't want to lie. I mean, it's a job application, right? You don't want to lie on your job application. No one does that. But anyway, the question was, if I give a 5 because I don't really know what the right answer is, will they let me off? And of course, the answer is no. If you give 5 answers, they flag them and then ask you about them in your second interview.
Oh, wow.
So what I did was I channeled the greeter at Walmart, this lovely little old lady. I thought, how would she answer these questions? Because she's obviously the kind of employee they really, really want, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in her world, of course, people don't steal things. Of course they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's no question.
Oh, that's so interesting, Charles.
Yeah.
Well, and then finally I got the phone call, well, you've got the job. I thought, wow, I did it. And then I thought, yeah, but all I've got now is a job at Walmart. Big deal.
But I love that you just did it because you kind of wanted to see what it was like, the experience.
Well, I wanted to write about it, but it turned out there's no story there because the people at my local Walmart are very happy to be there, and there's just no story.
Yeah. So, going down the list of other tools, I'm going to stay on the hardware side for a moment. Here's another quest you've had: the quest for a toaster, a toaster for thick bread. Is that the quest?
Well,
tell me what the quest is. What's the quest?
I don't know what your local supermarket does, but my local Safeway sells what they call fresh baked bread. Basically, they get it frozen and then heat it. It's very nice bread, but some of the loaves are about 10 inches in diameter. Well, if you want to take a slice off that loaf and toast it, you've got a problem. So I thought, well, it must be toasters that are made with this in mind. But in fact, that you can either get single normal width or double width. And then if you try to toast a regular slice of bread in a double width toaster, it all gets burned at the edges because there's too much heat. And it turns out the toasters have not been properly redesigned in decades, I guess. They're all designed for Wonder Bread, really. And I guess you're expected to have a toaster oven, but that takes longer than a toaster. So I had a problem there. I think I sent you a link to a double width slice toaster, which works fine if you want to do 2 slices of bread, but that wasn't what I wanted to do.
But so what you wanted to do, just to make the challenge clear, was you had some bread that's sort of wider or bigger than a normal Wonder Bread slice of bread.
That's right.
And so you can find toasters that are thick. They do thick bread like a bagel, but what you were looking for was one that did a kind of a long slice.
Well,
is that right?
Yes, if you consider the dimensions of the slot.
Yeah.
Let's call it the thickness in one dimension, and what I'm calling the width would be in the other dimension, maybe about 6 inches, something like that.
So this one that you found, toaster that you found, does 2 slices that are extremely wide. They're extra wide slots.
Right.
Not wide in the width, like the thickness.
No.
But wide as in like a plate is wide.
Exactly.
Okay, that's called the Ikich toaster 4-slice. Long slot. They call it a long slot toaster.
But just be aware, if you try to do a regular slice of bread in that toaster, it will burn at the edges because there's not enough material to absorb all the heat.
Okay. It must be good for pizza, too.
Well, I don't know. The cheese would run down, wouldn't it?
Well, reheating it. It's anyway,
I see.
That's another story. Okay, so because I have a 4-slot toaster that is for like thick pieces of bread, but they're not wide.
Right. No, there's no problem getting toasters that will do bagels. They're everywhere now.
Okay.
Wow.
So how many tools have we talked about now? I've lost track.
We have 3. So Charles, you have a bunch here. Why don't you select one for your 4th one that you think?
Yeah, let's talk about karambit knives. because
Okay.
they're so weird. It's sort of like a totally alien knife. First of all, you hold it in your fist with the blade sticking out at the bottom, and it's just a little blade about 2 inches long and triangular in shape, and it's a self-defense weapon. You cannot really be used for attacking people, so I kind of like it for that reason. I mean, I think knives are really creepy. I don't really like them, but if you want a knife, this one has a nice feel to it to me. And
is you say it's self-defense, but is it like, would you use? I mean, knives can be used for things other than self-defense. Does this have any other use besides self-defense?
Well, you could use it in a camping trip to do something, I guess, but it's really intended for if you're in some confrontation with a belligerent person, and it comes with a little sheath, and you can just grab it in your fist, and it's a very good way to discourage someone. I mean, maybe in Northern California, this kind of situation just never occurs. And it's such a beatific environment, especially where you are, Kevin, that you would never have any concern about a belligerent person. But I don't know about that.
Well, because I mean, I'm just going to speak personally. I would be so loath to get into a knife fight of any sort for any time, because my understanding of it is there's no easier way to get hurt than being in a knife fight.
Oh, well, you wouldn't want to defend yourself against somebody else who had a knife. No.
You just want to be the one with the knife, and the other person is just belligerent and barehanded.
I would be afraid, even if I was the only one who had the knife, of getting hurt.
Well, I think the advantage of a weapon like this is that the other person is unlikely to have seen it and will think, what the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
So you say you hold it in your fist. So right now, as we might describe it to somebody, it is a curved. It's like a curved knife that on one end has a pointy tip, and the other end has kind of like a ring, where you might put a finger.
That's
and
right.
Then there's a curved handle. But where are you gripping it? It's not clear to me.
You hold it in your fist with your forefinger through the ring, so that it basically cannot be taken away from you.
Oh, right. I see. Okay.
And so the blade comes up from the bottom of your fist.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And so are you meant to like punch with it? It's like it adds a little spice to your punch?
No, you would wave your arm around in a slashing gesture.
Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, the sharp edge is outwards. It's not on the inner curve.
That's
okay. Right. Okay. So you're just like, I get it. That is a vicious
it looks
tool.
Like the Velociraptor's claw.
Yeah.
Looks like you have a claw.
Well, it's off to.
I don't think we've ever had a more sinister tool mentioned on Cool
Tools.
I
threw it in. I thought, this is probably outside the usual comfort zone. So why not?
I love that you're sharing this with us, because it's something I've never seen before.
Is this TSA compliant?
So I'm sure if they took my nail clippers, they wouldn't like a karambit.
There's a ton of karambit tutorial videos on YouTube so that you can see how to do it.
And this is called a what?
Karambit.
Karambit.
And is that a generic term for the kind of knife, or is that a brand name?
Yeah, it's generic. It comes from Indonesia.
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay.
All right.
I'm really glad you told us about this one. It's really interesting.
And just to, again, the safety, wimp of me, it's like you have a sheath, but like, where do you normally carry it?
I don't know.
Until that moment that you need it. Where is it? You carry it in your pocket all the time? Is it on a belt?
Usually the sheath is designed to go on a belt, but for a karambit, that makes it hard to pull it out.
Right.
So I think inside a jacket would be where I would want it.
Well,
Charles,
where do you carry it?
Oh, I just bought it because I was writing a novel which had it.
Oh, okay. So you've never had occasion to use it in the undisclosed location that you live
No,
in.
no, no. The
Okay.
only confrontations I've had, I've always talked my way out of it.
Okay. That's the
But
best way to
you're
do it.
interested in watching other people use it.
I would love to, yes.
Yeah.
When I first moved to a small town in Arizona, I would hang out at the bar, and it was a bit less civilized in those days. I was so excited the first time I saw a bar fight. And the woman who owned the bar really wanted a more upscale clientele, and I guess I was like her idea of a step in that direction. So she started apologizing. I'm so sorry. This normally doesn't happen. I said, no, it's great. They actually fell down on the floor and were kind of rolling around, struggling with each other. It was quite.
Oh,
Wow. I reviewed a book, I think, for Cool Tools that someone sent me to review. And I think it was just called How to Win a Fight. And about 2/3 to 3/4 of the book was just about avoiding at all costs getting into a fight, because whether you win or lose in a fight, you end up losing.
Right. It's like a lawsuit.
You know, yeah, you're going to get sued absolutely every time. Even if you win, you could be injured. You're going to have like psychological issues. And the best thing to do is whatever you can, avoid the fight.
Yeah.
I could write that. I could write that book too.
Well, Bruce Lee
Yeah.
said the same thing in his book. He said, if some crazy person wants to bite your nose, they're probably going to be able to do it no matter what you do. So just don't get into a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And I think, Kevin, you had a piece of good advice where you said you've decided you're never going to get in an argument with a stranger.
I walk away so fast now from anything that has any hint of escalating. It's just like, I don't know. I don't need to win.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It just doesn't. Yeah, I'm way too cautious right now, so I just walk away, and that served me well traveling. Almost every incident that I have heard of someone having a bad time traveling will often involve a bar,
right,
or drinking at the least, and it just kind of I just avoid. I have a really good nose for avoiding those kinds of places and people.
I had a neighbor problem, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. And suddenly I thought to myself, what would Kevin Kelly do? And it worked. It actually worked. So,
well, what did Kevin Kelly do?
Yeah,
I invited him over to dinner.
Okay,
that's good.
And he was so stunned he didn't come, which was good. It completely defused the whole situation.
That's so cool.
That's so brilliant. Yeah,
I turned the other cheek, Kevin.
Yeah. So Charles, one of the things that both Mark and I have read is your ongoing series of memoirs, which are amazing. I have a pile of books next to my bookstand, books that have been reviewed in the New York Times, books that are quality books, and by high-priced authors. And then when your book comes along, I immediately have to read it. I mean, I just sit down and I go through it immediately, and I'm not even sure why, because it's like, what, I mean, you're not famous. You haven't killed anybody yet, at least in volume 3. And so, but I find it totally engaging. I find your writing, and I think I determined what it was that you're so honest about the little ways your life has been screwed up that I can't wait to find out how you're going to screw up your life next. And that just keeps me turning the pages. So anyway, I don't know if Mark wants to say anything, but I just find your biography to be some of the best writing, page-turning writing that I've read recently.
I agree, and in a just world, your books would be New York Times bestsellers. Your memoirs, they're fascinating, and I think it's also your curiosity, your willingness to try something without having any kind of much in the way of preparation, but just wanting to learn and jump in head first into something. And the huge variety of things that you've done. It's like you've lived like a dozen different lives. It's like, it's fascinating to me. And also you have like a sense of humor about it too, that it just all adds up to being fascinating.
I mean, at the risk of saying something that I might regret, Charles, I mean, what it is that you have enough successes in your life that you can then screw them up. Right. So you have this, instead of like kind of like being on a downward spiral, you kind of like, you have these periods where you have success, and then you can kind of like, you have a setback, you have something that went wrong, and then you can come back up again, another success, and then things. And so this kind of roller coaster life, it's just, I don't know. I just find it compelling to read.
You know, the secret, Kevin, is just having really poor judgment.
Well, but you don't want too much poor. That's what I'm saying. You have just the right amount of poor judgment.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So, I mean, like if you had only bad judgment, you wouldn't be that interesting.
Well, I'm glad it fits your comfort scale there.
Yes, it's kind of like the Goldilocks point of bad judgment. You've just the right amount of it. And anyway, so I hope you continue that. And the other thing for all the readers out there that's totally remarkable, in fact, Charles know that I actually grilled him on this, as I was the detail that you remember from your previous life is for me awe-inspiring, because my memory is, it's not even a sieve, it's just like it's a hole in the ground, it just disappears. And so but you have this remarkably detailed account, and that specificity of the of the errors that you're in, and the people around you, and what you were doing, and what you were wearing that day, and all this stuff is just completely, again, captivating, and makes these books work.
Yeah, I just wish there was a way to monetize it, but
yeah,
so it is. That's the way it is. Anyway, in case anyone might feel interested, it's called An Accidental Life, volumes 1 through 3, and they are being sold at cost, because I figured I would make so little money if I was selling them at a profit. That would just annoy me. So it was.
That's Charles. That's such a Charles move.
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon, and it's it takes advantages of your skills as not only a writer, but a designer and an illustrator and a photographer.
Yeah,
all that stuff comes into play. So it's a good kind of example of all the different skills, the many skills you have.
And for the readers who aren't aware, Charles actually has a reputation in the science fiction, writing science fiction. Besides his work at Wired as a nonfiction writer, a lot of the stories revolve around your journey through the science fiction world, and you drop real people's names, and so it's a biography. It's not fiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recommend them, and I will recommend them. Charles, are you working on the next volume?
Yes, but I have a problem there, because my judgment wasn't quite so bad in the 1980s.
Well,
it was a more successful period, which is not quite in the zone.
Please, not as interesting,
not as amusing. Yes,
success is boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What is, just for my own interest, what is the years that?
Basically the volumes are, the first volume is
decades.
Until I was around 20, and then we got to 25, and then 35. So the fourth volume is from 1980 through 1990, and that was when I actually, there was one remarkably self-destructive thing I did, but it also enabled me to do a lot of other things. So really, it all worked out.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. I hope you keep going.
The science fiction field had not yet sort of completely fallen apart, and I was quite involved in it in New York. That was a very pleasant time in some ways, although I had a drug-crazed girlfriend who was a bit difficult.
Well, I look forward to that, or to reading it.
Charles, yeah, me too. Charles, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us and to all of our listeners who I'm sure have loved this podcast.
I enjoyed it as usual. I always enjoy talking to you, Charles. And we also, I want to mention one more thing. Charles's other facet of his life, which he is very successful at, which is as an author of books on electronics, how to do electronics. And could you just mention a few minutes about that, Charles, for our readers? Because that is a cool tool, or they are cool tools.
Yes, I was approached by Mark originally to contribute to Make magazine, and then once I got into that, I recapitulated my childhood, really, when making things was a great escape from the world and very interesting. And one thing led to another, so I wrote this book called Make Electronics, which I don't think anyone really had special hopes for, but it sold more than 200,000 copies in
the
last 10 years, just in the United States alone. So, it did well, first of all, it's totally hands-on, and secondly, it works on the principle that first you do the experiment and then you find out what it means, which is completely the opposite of the traditional educational system, where someone writes something on a blackboard or a whiteboard, such as Ohm's law, and then if you have time, you do an experiment to verify it, which is no fun at all because you already know what the answer will be. So it's much more interesting to go blindly ahead with a breadboard and some components, and then say, well, what happened? And that's basically, I think, why the book has done well, because it's fun.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I think, don't you get to like pop a capacitor or an LED in the first couple of pages?
Fail.
Yeah.
We're not afraid to burn things out.
Yeah. Well, this is really great. We'll have a link for those books in the show notes as well. And Charles, it's always a delight. Thank you again for joining us and putting up with our our crazy questions. So thank you.
Well, thank you for all the kind words. Very nice.
Hey everybody, it's your co-host Mark, and I wanted to let you know that we have a lot more going on here in Cool Tools than just this podcast. We have our flagship website where we review a new tool every day. That's at cool-tools.org. We also have 4 different newsletters. We have this podcast. We have a YouTube channel where we review tools. And if you like what you hear and see and read, the best way to help us out is by going to our Patreon page at patreon.com/cooltools and donate at any level you wish. You can even contribute $1 a month, and that would mean a lot to us. The money that you give us will go towards paying for our transcribing costs, editing videos, and editing the podcast. It goes towards paying contributors who write the reviews for us. It goes towards our equipment costs, our hosting costs, and it supports our very small company of 3 people. This week, I wanted to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters who have been giving us at least $2 a month. And if you give us $2 a month, we'll give you a shout out online. And this week, I would like to thank Michael Sakochia, Molly Starr, M. Velderman, Opposable Thumbs, Pamela Cooley, Patrick Weyer, Paul Hosey, Randy Fisher, Stuart Burroughs Brand, Synaptic Sam, Therese Schwartz, Tom Hawkins, Tom Markham, What Bear, Javier Pangolin, David Lang, Eric Byers, Sean Hartley, Stephen Powell, Greg Lichtscheit, John Hobson, Adam Bristol, Adam Naher, Anonymous, Bill Kempthorne, Bruce I. Niles, Chris Woodruff, C. Kolos, Daryl Flynn, Egg Fleegoff, Eric Hanschrau, Eric Hoover, Godfrey Saldana, Jay Skiles, John M. Larson, Jude Galligan, Kenneth Gilman, and Lucas Frank. Thank you very much for supporting the show, and we will see you next week.